Hi, my name's Irfon Watkins. I'm the CEO and founder of Dovu. And I'm going to spend the next sort of 25 minutes filling your buzzword bingo cards, really, with things like blockchain and cryptocurrencies and tokens. I think it'll be a good sort of a good round if anybody's filling those in. Just to get some sort of feeling. How many in the room are sort of familiar with blockchain or have done anything with blockchain? Okay, that's sort of pretty good. How about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? Yeah? You're still sane? It's great. What I'm going to be talking about really is a little bit about what Dovu do, why we're here, and how it relates to the transformation that's happening within the mobility space. By mobility, I mean transport, anything that moves from A to B, not sort of mobile phones. So, and the space that we're operating in, that sort of mobility sector, is really going through a very exciting time. And it enables companies like Dovu to come from outside that area, outside the domain expertise, and start to look at ways that we can facilitate and encourage sort of transformation in that area. So Dovu, I founded Dovu a couple of years ago. We're headquartered in Bristol and some offices in sort of London. We are invested in by In Motion Ventures, which is the investment arm of Jaguar Land Rover, and Creative England, which is a local sort of fund. We also eat our own dog food, so we are a decentralized business based on the blockchain. We went out and did an ICO, a token sale, for want of a better description, raised money via that route to capitalize the business in order to build our business sort of going forward. So I'm going to give you a little video which sort of gives a little bit of an explanation about us, I hope.
People contribute to the future of their cities through actions. Preview. Smart cities needs smart citizens. Gamify mobility and accelerate innovation. Say hello to Dovu, a token you earn and spend by sharing and changing the way you travel. Whether you're working on connected cars, public transport, or autonomous vehicles, the Dove token facilitates a new transfer of value. Transactions are secure and reliable, even when you don't know each other. Smart contracts define the agreement between individuals and connected things to share and transact in a transparent and controllable way. Tokenized incentivization will power future business models. Join the movement.
Thank you. So just to sort of rein it back a bit, really, what we're focused on is blockchain when it comes to delivering services and value and reward, not blockchain when it comes to supply chain management and large sort of infrastructure projects. So we believe that where blockchain sort of can have a huge amount of value is when you can use it and apply contracts to it, smart contracts. And again, just to sort of back up, blockchain is a ledger, distributed ledger that is immutable. When you apply some business logic to it, such as a smart contract, and a smart contract is basically a if this then that type of code, that starts to become quite powerful. And then when you apply a token of value on top of that, then things start to sort of come together. And that's really what Dovu is all about, is the ability to create a token-based business model ledgered on the blockchain and sort of delivering value to all the stakeholders in the mobility space. And I'm going to talk about a few sort of use cases, really, in terms of projects that we're working on right now with large OEMs globally. OEMs meaning, in this case, sort of car companies, as well as some sort of public transport sort of businesses as well. So this is about the front-end user experience more than sort of going into the back-end sort of technical analysis of what blockchain is. So what happens when you can tokenize, and I did say we're going to use some buzzwords, tokenize business models, when you can break down a business model into sort of tiny incremental elements, and then you can use those tokens as a way of rewarding and encouraging behavior within ecosystems, and apply some nudge economic sort of models in order to get people to do different things, or to get different stakeholders to do different things that are of value. So, we're familiar with tokens as consumers. We either earn them for air miles, or we earn them for shopping. There's plenty of ways that you can earn a token, a little a reward token. The challenge with most tokens that we know right now is that, do they really encourage behavior? And also, can you unlock them and really use them? I travel a lot with the business. It's very hard to spend air miles. I find it very difficult unless, and also I don't really want to shop at the same shop every time, and I don't want to get the same coffee at the same place. And I'll go there anyway. The tokens are sort of slightly different. So closed ecosystems for, tokens of reward, they really struggle to encourage behavior. And sometimes on a financial model, they leave a liability on a balance sheet because you've got sort of deferred value that you have to sort of deliver. So with blockchain and with crypto tokens, you can create a token environment and a reward environment that is open, isn't contained within garden walls, and can sort of move around. The blockchain is the value. It's ledgered there, so you know that whatever you've delivered of value is there, and you can audit it. So trust starts to get built up between the value that you're delivering. So the other element of it is instant. So if I do something and I earn something as a result of doing an action, my wallet, my app, in other words, on my phone or my dashboard, will instantly tell me that I've earned a reward. So, how does that apply to some of the mobility models that are out there right now? So, very hot in the news right now, data sharing, GDPR. Who owns the data? How do I get value for it? And how can I trust that data has been used, correctly? So, if I'm driving from Bristol to Manchester, and I've been given the opportunity to share some of that drive-in data, whether that data is around the car itself, such as how I drive, or that data is personal, such as what service station do I stop at, how many people are in the car, and a whole range of other sort of elements. Having the ability to earn, for the transfer of that data, and for that reward to be ledgered and that reward to be delivered to me instantly. These are some of the areas that we're working on right now in terms of how we can do that. And the great thing about the crypto currencies and the crypto tokens and the Dovu token that we've created, it's divisible by 18. So whatever that value is, let's say it's 1 cent a token, it's divisible by 18. So you can actually reward for tiny micro elements of value. So unlike a token where you you get £1 or you get $1 or you get €1, that's too large, for some of the actions that we want to do. And then if you take a look and you add another layer of not complexity, but value, you have the tokenized sort of business models, and then you can start to put a layer of gamification on it. Again, tick that one off on the buzzword bingo. So the gamification is really league tables. People, I don't know how many play games on your apps, whether that's Candy Crush or whatever. We're used to, being rewarded and having some sort of buzz really from going from one level to the next. So you tokenize a business model, you create some gamification, and you provide instant reward. You can then start to encourage user behavior. Because one thing that isn't going to happen is that building technology on its own, releasing it to the masses when it comes to transport, doesn't encourage behavior all the time, or the right behavior. And this isn't about, so we're funded by a car company. But really what we're trying to do is to encourage behavior that sort of stops people driving as much, or use different forms of transport. So again, when you start to link different sort of business models together, let's say that you know that there's air pollution in Bristol, and that you can actually link that into an encouragement system to encourage a Bristol citizen to use public transport, don't drive in. You know, there's bad congestion. You can create the token model, you wrap it up with a smart contract, and you have an instant reward, you know, for doing a particular type of behavior. And then you can gamify it by having a league table as well as to where you sit as being a good citizen for Bristol. All of those things can happen, and those are the type of projects that we're sort of working on. The other element is the explosion that's going to happen, perhaps it's not the right word, of electric vehicles. So one of the challenges for OEMs is how do you know what the residual value of that vehicle is going to be in 3 years' time when the most valuable element in it potentially is the battery? Because actually if you look at our behavior of how we use batteries, we abuse them. You know, our mobile phones are charged up all the time, topped up, you know, and then we moan that the charge has dropped just because we don't use it correctly. You know, there's no incentive for us to use it correctly, you know. A car's slightly different. So how do you encourage somebody to charge their car in a correct way and maintain the value of that battery? How do you encourage somebody to charge their car off-peak instead of on-peak? Or at one particular charging point and not another, because actually the idea of too many people in one street charging in one area probably is not very good for the national grid as it currently stands. So, you know, you can start to pull together the data, the information, tokenize the business model, create rewards-based system to encourage behavior that has value right across the chain. And again, the idea of all of this being structured and put on the blockchain is that it's auditable, trust is created. One of the other projects we're working on is about selling charge back to the grid from an electric vehicle. So again, if you've charged your car up and it's sort of 80%, 90%, you wake up in the morning and it's back at 8%, you sort of want to know what's happened. So again, having that ledger on the chain, having the knowledge that you've been paid instantly for that sort of for that energy to be put back onto the grid, it builds trust. So blockchain builds trust, tokens create reward, smart contracts facilitate sort of actions, and when you combine them together, it's very sort of powerful, and it's a real area of sort of growth in the mobility space. In terms of enhancing customer loyalty, well, you know, I'm with Sting on this. You know, if you love someone, set them free. You know, I'm not into the garden walls. You know, don't lock them in. I don't want to just have my coffee at Cafe Nero. You know, it'd be great if I could just sort of have it somewhere else. Maybe a smaller cup if I've earned it. If I've earned the sort of the rewards at Cafe Nero, smaller cup somewhere else. But the bottom line is that, you know, tokens are here to stay. Cryptocurrency is here to stay, and blockchain's here to stay. There were 1,800 tokens created last year. There's another 5,000 being created this year. We're on track for 100,000 crypto tokens out there. The model of crypto tokens going forward and the way that we're going to transfer these values are going to be called atomic swaps. Real-time swap-in of value between one token and another. On a wallet or an app that demonstrates to you instantly what the value is of swapping a Dovu token for a Transport for London ticket or a Starbucks coffee or whatever. There'll be instant transfer of values there, you know, that will go through the system. So when we work with OEMs, you know, you would think that maybe the first conversation would be, this sounds great, but we want to lock our customer into our ecosystem. If they're going to earn rewards, then we only want them to be spent, you know, with us. Absolutely, it's the opposite, and that's sort of really refreshing that the conversations are going elsewhere. We've talked about dynamic electric vehicle charging, the infrastructure integration. Also, sort of other elements about, you know, car-to-car conversations, car-to-car contracts, little tiny sort of bits of reward. How can I pay the car in front to allow me to overtake them in a sort of simple way, you know, because I'm in a bit of a rush and they're not, so we need to sort of negotiate that. the tokenization of those type of transactions is real. If I sort of wind it back a little bit, blockchain is still nascent, though. So let's put some reality into this. The projects that we're working on are pilots. The cost of doing certain transactions right now are prohibitive to do on scale, and the speed of doing those transactions are just not great. So right now, the whole blockchain industry, anybody that talks about blockchain, about having some sort of ability to create a global, scalable, fantastic, great customer experience, they're probably not being genuine. Because there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for this to sort of come to fruition on a global scale. However, there's a heck of a lot of development going on to make that happen, and we're very comfortable, that certainly in the next sort of 18 months we'll see sort of global rollouts of these type of projects. Again, the value. So why, Bitcoin is the first killer app of blockchain, really. So blockchain was needed because Bitcoin is the currency that doesn't need a central bank, doesn't need a third party to validate a trade. The technology validates that sort of trade. And so blockchain was needed in order for Bitcoin to sort of exist. But the beauty of blockchain is it then separates away from Bitcoin and starts to create these smart contracts and use cases in other areas. So again, blockchain for mobility. So how do you imagine the whole life of your car? Everything that's happened to your car is ledgered on the chain. Somebody bought it, somebody crashed it, somebody had this replaced, that replaced, this replaced, and it's all on a decentralized, public, auditable sort of profile. That would be fantastic, because apparently, I think the stats are 30% of cars on the road are not genuine, second-hand cars. They're, in other words, something's happened to them that hasn't been notified or isn't real. Don't hold me to that, statistics and lies, very close things. But I do know that if you can ledger something, you put it on the blockchain, it's there for you. So when you're buying it, it's fantastic. More importantly, from an insurance perspective, it'll help. And again, if you have an accident and if you have whatever insurance thing that you're into, again, that can be instantly validated, put on the chain and sort of paid out. So blockchain and smart contracts, instant validation and ledgering, has a massive impact, not just for the individual in terms of payment, but also for the insurance companies and so on as well. So another project that we're working on from the insurance side is, in a connected car, we know who's driving, we know how many people are in the car, and we know if there are any children in the car. So basically, if you look at current insurance models in the sort of mobility space, they haven't changed that much for the last, 50 years or so. You pay a monthly fee, or an annual contract, and you add an additional driver, and they may drive, they may not drive, but you paid for them anyway, and away you go. The ability to sort of to create insurance contracts which are based on real-time risks change things significantly. So I'm driving the car, then the risk is known, it's ledgered, and I drive it from A to B. My kids jump in the back, different risk, I'll pay more for that. If I want somebody else to drive the car and it isn't me, again, I'll pay some more for that. So, but I'm only paying for the miles driven. I'm not paying, for the annual cost of that. So you can start to look at sort of how different models can start to sort of facilitate, when you link those type of insurance contracts, can facilitate and encourage car sharing. So again, you look at the future of the connected car, you can share the key via an app with a friend, or without not a friend, just somebody that you want to use the car. They can type in the 4-code digit, it opens the car knows that it's not you, sets up an insurance contract, that's linked to a smart contract that was connected to the distribution of that sort of 4-code digit to the individual that's driving their car. you're charging them, or they're paying you to drive it. That's been sent straight, immediately ledgered on the blockchain into your app, into your wallet. They're driving the car, the insurance company know who's driving it, and the whole thing gets wrapped up, very seamlessly. And what that does, it removes the need for somebody, if you want to do a car share, to come around, you have to hand over the key, fill in some form for insurance, sort of do all those sort of other elements. Blockchain, smart contracts, and the ability to transfer value instantly via cryptocurrencies change that, dynamic completely. So, we've got 4 minutes left. In sort of summary, really, we are, if you remove the hype of cryptocurrency, you remove the hype of sort of blockchain, and you remove the hype of Bitcoin and all the negative aspects of it, and just think about a ledger that is auditable, that is trusted. You think about the removal of all the costs associated with having a team or a company that only exists because one person or one party doesn't trust the other. Allow technology to do that, have it instantly auditable, and have instant value transferred across borders. Because that's the other aspect of crypto and tokens. It's ridiculous that we would have to pay a fee to a bank, and I think it's about trillions of dollars spent in transferring a euro to a pound to a dollar to a drachma to a whatever. It's crazy. So the idea that if you're mobile and you're driving around or you're flying around or you're doing some action, you can earn those tokens and that value in a seamless way that doesn't rely on the transfer of from one currency to another. Again, huge sort of value in that. So lots of projects going on. It's not going away. Tokens aren't going away. The model of funding the business around tokens isn't going away. And when you start applying the thought process of tokenizing gamification of business models with instant rewards, ledgered on an immutable ledger that anybody can audit to create trust. If you spend some time doing that, it's amazing the use cases that sort of come up. And for us right now, we're very excited to be at the heart of that. We're launching with BMW tomorrow at the Tate Modern our first crypto sort of tokenization of a business model. And then we've got a whole range of, as I say, all these different sort of pilots going on. So it's an exciting time for the mobility space. Any questions with 1 minute to go? Or should I get off the stage? Hi. Well, how does a car know who's in the car, basically? Weight, predominantly. But again, this is a pilot stage. So, right now I think there's a range of different things that can do that. One of the challenges is when you link back to GDPR personal data and how you use that personal data and the permission to use that. So one of the challenges around the whole token model right now, is what data do you own as an individual? What data does in the car, for example, what data does the car company own? So when the windscreen wipers come on, is it your data or the car's data? So, for example, if 50 Range Rovers in the vicinity of London all put their windscreen wipers on, then that's very localized weather data. If the road suspension is pretty poor, and 50 Range Rovers are sort of in Chelsea, are sort of saying that it's the roads are pretty rough unlikely. Again, that's local road sort of data. Who owns that? You know, is that you because you're driving it? Is it so on? So some of them are a bit more out there, and that, you know, as to who knows who's in the car. But the experimentation around the modeling is really where we're at. So if that data is freely available, does it make sense for the business model to apply? You know, and that's what the insurance companies are looking at really, as to whether that's a model that works. Sorry, I've run out of time. So, waffling on, classic Welsh waffle. Sorry.
How do you address the issue with data security, because you're providing your personal car information to the blockchain, which makes it...
Yes, we're talking about data security on the blockchain. We don't get involved in that, thankfully. It's not our data. We're a facilitator, really, of the exchange of value, rather than the security of the blockchain of the data itself. So, why we work with people like BMW and Jaguar and others is it's their data. If it's a car, it's their customer data. You know, they're not our customers. From our side of it, we're just building smart contracts and we're facilitating the exchange of value in the transaction. So the other elements as to whose data it is, we don't store any data. We don't capture it ourselves. Okay, thank you.